Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:07 now on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. I said the basketball player from the University of Iowa was Caitlin Collins. Of course, Caitlin Collins is the partially... I won't be mean. She's the host of a CNN primetime television show.
Don Lemon's old
exactly.
co-host.
There you go. Don Lemon's
Wonder
old
if she was at the wedding.
At Don Lemon's wedding? Oh, we'll have to find out. I doubt she was invited.
Doubt it.
Caitlin Clark is the star basketball player from University of Iowa. And this is what I get for operating without a net. It is. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in here on this Eclipse Day. We're very excited for you. You've missed me gushing about how I can't wait to head out and see the eclipse. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. By the way, if you'd like to know my true feelings about the eclipse, you should download the podcast.
Yes.
Because you missed the 5 o'clock hour. 7:35, Dr. Mark Siegel on the outbreaks of tuberculosis and measles. And then at 8:35, back to the eclipse with astronaut Tom Jones.
Yeah, I'll sum up how Larry feels. Okay, there's something between the moon and Earth, and it's called clouds.
And it's going to block your view. So, great plan, everybody. Once in a lifetime. I'm kidding. I know this is going to be devastating for people. It'll be fun. Yesterday was the 6-month anniversary. I don't want to use the word anniversary, but it is 6-month mark of the terror attacks in Gaza, or right outside of Gaza, in the state of Israel, against over 1,000 innocent Israelis and Americans and French and multinational crowd that came to peacefully enjoy a music festival when they were gunned down, massacred, slaughtered. Children were mutilated. Women were raped. By the way,
children were raped.
It's also the 6-month anniversary of human beings being held against their will, including 6 Americans, currently still being held hostage and terrorized every moment for the last 6 months, the kind of lasting trauma that they are going through and that their families are going through. And they're never mentioned in all of the debates and the wrangling. And no demand. There should be a daily demand from our president and Secretary of State for the release of those people before any. You want to talk about a ceasefire? You want to talk about this? We won't say a word until the innocent people are released.
It is amazing to me how little coverage those still being held. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
6 months. They're being held. Also, I'm told that Israel's guilty of war crimes. You know what a war crime is? A war crime is targeting civilians, like the Hamas did on October 7th. Yeah. A war crime is keeping hostages, like they're doing, innocent people for the last 6 months. War crimes are combatants not wearing clearly defined uniforms, military uniforms. They dress like civilians. That is a war crime as well. Hiding amongst women and children in hospitals and schools is a war crime. Hamas is leading the world in war crimes right now.
Building tunnels underneath hospitals and kindergartens and civilian areas so that you can hide Hamas soldiers, not the citizens. They are responsible for every human rights violation in Gaza. Hamas is responsible for that.
Yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced to his nation that in 6 months they have eliminated 19 of Hamas's 24 battalions, including many senior commanders.
Good.
They've cleared out Shifa and other terrorist command centers. We've destroyed factories for producing rockets, command centers, and stores of weapons and ammunition, and continue to systematically destroy underground installations. They went on to list many, many, many achievements, finishing with, citizens of Israel, there is no war more just than this one, and we are determined to achieve total victory, to return all of our hostages, complete the elimination of Hamas and the entire Gaza Strip, including Rafah, and ensure that Gaza never again constitutes a threat to Israel. And why would you expect anything less than that from the leader of your country faced with the attack of October 7th? And frankly, it's amazing.
They will continue to do it.
I saw Leon Panetta was on with Jake Tapper Friday saying, well, I can't believe it's already, been going on for 6 months. It's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Panetta, what's your track record for destroying a terror threat and being able, they've done quite a bit in 6 months. What's the timeline here? How long is it supposed to take? I'm sorry, how long were we in Iraq and Afghanistan with your support, by the way?
And look, there have been, you hear this constant drumbeat of the deaths in Gaza, the destruction. in Gaza. IDF has dropped leaflets, has warned the citizens, has said an attack is coming. We are going to target this building. They have done everything they can to try to save the civilian population in Gaza. It is Hamas who hides among the civilians in hospitals, in schools.
Yeah.
It is Hamas. Hamas is the problem here.
They've also delivered a ton of people forget because
yeah.
World Central Kitchen is there feeding all of the starving people. Hold on a minute. Listen to this. This is a great video from a Israeli social media influencer. I'm sorry I don't have her name. But the state of Israel has actually delivered a ton of food, literally hundreds of thousands of tons. Here, take a listen.
Is there famine in Gaza? If so, is it Israel's fault? I am here with a math lesson. Not girl math, actual math. So far, Israel has sent in about 234,000 tons of food to Gaza. According to calculations based on the UN's World Food Program, it would take 4,287 tons of food to feed the 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza for 1 week. So how long could this 234,000 tons of food last the entire population of Gaza? Well, what is 234,000, the amount of food sent in by Israel so far, divided by 4,287, the amount of food needed per week to feed the 2.2 million civilians of Gaza? Well, look at that. It's 54.58, meaning enough food for 54 and a half weeks. That's over a year. How many weeks has this war been going on? About 25. So according to basic math, Israel has sent in more than double the amount of food needed. Perplexing, isn't it?
Yeah, if people are starving in Gaza, it's not Israel's fault.
Yeah, and I will say also about the citizens of Gaza, because there is an awful lot of chatter about, there's just innocent civilians in Gaza. Some of those hostages are being held by citizens of Gaza, not by Hamas. And we know that many citizens of Gaza went over those broken fences, came into those communities on the Israeli side, and hurt people, killed people, raped people, and took them back with them, lifted bodies onto pickup trucks and paraded them around Gaza. So, of course, no civilian should be killed or injured or hurt, but it gets real muddy. It gets real muddy what's going and these are the people who want the Jewish state wiped off the face of the earth, and the Israelis are expected to feed them.
Yeah. Well, and also about the citizens of Gaza, they elected Hamas.
Yeah.
And they've kept Hamas in power this entire time since they took power. Also, everyone wants to compare everything to World War II and the Nazis. Okay, let's do a quick comparison to the Nazis, because you would walk into Germany, and it was really interesting. You could tell, here's a German citizen because, look, they're just, look at the lederhosen. Look, you look good. Yodel for me. You look over there, and it's like, this person's a Nazi. You know how I know? Because they're wearing a Nazi uniform. Try that in Gaza.
Exactly.
Try that in Gaza. Differentiate the citizen from the member of the Hamas military
Despite
who is
that,
actually,
Larry,
because they all dress the same, which again is a violation of the Geneva Conventions.
Despite that, Larry, in the middle of World War II, we were not feeding the German people.
And then there's that. Yes, we were not compelled to send tons of food and aid to Dresden.
Yes.
When we were bombing the hell out of them. There are definitely two standards involved here, and for some reason, the one and only Jewish state on the planet has to live up to a standard that no other nation in the history of warfare has ever had to live up to. That said, we have the results of the IDF's investigation into the drone attack on Jose Andres' precious World Central Kitchen. And we're going to give you the details of that, because what you've been hearing about Jose Andres and the World Central Kitchen and the death of those aid workers is not at all, apparently, the facts involved in what happened last week. And we'll give you those details in a moment. First, though, at 6:15.
WMAL, more than just politics, because laughter is the best medicine. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Antony Blinken, and Jake Sullivan pretend like they know more about fighting a war than Benjamin Netanyahu, which is just an embarrassing joke on the face of it. And since the death of 7 aid workers, humanitarian volunteers for the World Central Kitchen, they have been leaning on Israel to force a ceasefire, reverse course, and end its operations immediately. because Jose Andres, who I believe is up for a sainthood, is it? Or is it just a Nobel Peace Prize? I'm not
Both,
sure.
I think,
Both
actually.
at the
Yeah,
same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Mother Teresa and Oprah all rolled into one, and he'll sell you a $50 empanada.
That's right.
And you'll be happy for it.
Yes.
Ever since that, he must be appeased, man. And listen, forget about, the UN, forget about, the Pope. Jose Andres has now demanded a ceasefire, so you better damn do it.
So did Julie
if you want a reservation in this town again.
Just some insanity. So did Julie Briskman this weekend.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
right.
Our Loudoun County supervisor whose claim to fame
I'm
is
sure that
flipping off a
Netanyahu was like,
motorcade.
well, if Julie wants it.
Yes,
there we
Julie.
go.
Are you telling me Julie Briskman at the Loudoun County supervisors? Okay.
Or I'm going to get the middle finger.
Call the IDF. We're pulling out. All right. So Joe Biden's been lecturing Netanyahu because of this admittedly mistaken drone attack against the World Central Kitchen convoy. Now, interestingly, Joe Biden is also responsible for a mistaken death of an Afghan family by drone attack.
Yes.
In the days after 13 service members were killed because of his failed policies. There's a big distinction with how the U.S. handled the failed drone attack against that family with children versus how the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu has handled the erroneous attack against the World Central Kitchen. Nobody was ever fired in the Pentagon for our...
Biden didn't say anything.
He never mentioned it. He went to the beach for the
That's
weekend.
right.
Whatever investigation happened was buried, and nobody, only because Congress had a hearing did we ever find out the truth about that drone attack. Meanwhile, 2 senior officers with the Israeli Defense Forces have been fired, and 3 others have been censured by the IDF for the mistaken attack on the aid workers. Their investigation was released on Saturday.
No, go on.
I want to give you the now. And again, for everybody who said, well, that's just the IDF telling you this. Understand, the IDF is taking responsibility. They actually said this shouldn't have happened. We've fired 2 officers. We censured 3 others. This is a problem.
How did this happen?
However, you need to know how this mistake happened. At around 10 p.m., the IDF noticed suspicious activity as the World Central Kitchen vehicle was joined by a convoy of Hamas vehicles. So now they're all driving together.
Interesting.
Hamas terrorists then climbed onto and into the World Central Kitchen truck and fired several times indiscriminately into the air to ensure the IDF would see them. The convoy then split up and entered a hangar where it became difficult to distinguish between the Hamas vehicles and the World Central Kitchen vehicle. IDF attempted to call both the World Central Kitchen workers and World Central Kitchen headquarters on 2 separate occasions to confirm whether they were with the Hamas convoy, but the calls remained unanswered. When the vehicles left the hangar over an hour later, the IDF drone unit misidentified the World Central Kitchen vehicle for a vehicle from the Hamas convoy and mistakenly struck. Now, and all of those findings are public. They have shared it with World Central Kitchen and Jose Andres, who I'm sure will come out and say, oh, well, now I understand how this happened.
And don't forget, Jose Andres said it was intentional.
Yeah, he said it was a deliberate attack.
said
They were targeting the World Central Kitchen. Now, let's be clear. The IDF has laid all that out. It's like a shell game, right?
Right.
The cars come in, they join the convoy, they go into a hangar, then the cars leave, and it's like, all right. The IDF explains how that happened. That makes sense, by the way. The IDF still said, all this being said, we still shouldn't have done this.
Right.
If there was any doubt, if there was any question, we should not have fired on the convoy. But it is somewhat understandable now how it happened. It was also the middle of the night.
Yes.
And they have now asked the World Central Kitchen to utilize new stickers for their vehicles that can be seen by drones in the dark because apparently there was no reflective, it's dark.
I will also say, what in the world were these aid workers doing there in this dangerous situation? Jose Andre should ask himself, why in the world am I going into these dangerous areas? Look.
And why are my humanitarian volunteers hanging out with the
Hamas.
Enemy, with the Hamas terrorists?
And look, I have no doubt. We know that often humanitarian aid is taken by Hamas. Okay, it almost always.
Of course, we've
taken
seen
by
it.
Hamas.
We've seen the
so
video.
why are you operating there? These are not special forces. You have an aid kitchen with humanitarian workers that are probably not trained to deal with this level of danger.
World Central Kitchen started out aiding people who were suffering from earthquakes and hurricanes, and then the next thing you know, they're
He's
in the
political.
middle of war zones.
That's right.
And they're taking sides in conflicts.
Yes.
And if you don't think he's taking sides in this,
Oh,
you're
he's
not
taking
paying
sides.
attention.
Yeah.
So now you have the facts. And again, I want to repeat, the IDF has laid out the details of how this happened.
They've said
They
it
have
was wrong.
fired people. They said we
Yes.
still shouldn't have fired, but you need to understand that we're not deliberately going out of our way to target humanitarian
Yeah.
aid workers. Where are the apologies?
Yeah.
And where are the news reports? Oh, no, we're going to be too busy talking about the solar eclipse
right.
today
Yeah, exactly.
to deliver people the news about what really happened with
Okay,
the World
well, we
Central
did too.
Kitchen. Because you know what? They don't care about the World Central Kitchen.
Yeah, I know.
They care about using whatever weapon they can to defeat Israel. And again, one must ask, why? Why Israel? Of all the countries, why? You don't hear this kind of analysis about Ukraine and
Nope.
Russia
Nope.
or anything. There's just one conflict on the planet where one country is held to this standard.
What makes them different, Larry?
What is different about Israel and everyone else? It's 624.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
637 on O'Connor and Company. Fox and Friends. That's a morning show over on the Fox News channel, apparently. They are referring to it as America's solar eclipse.
Well, it is, I think.
See, this is why people hate us around the world. It's not our sun. It's not our moon. It's not our shadow.
Okay.
It just happens to be occurring over North America. But
Fine.
it's America's solar eclipse. Screw the rest of you. Canada's like, hey,
You could fly here
we're
and
seeing
watch it
some
if
of
you
it.
want.
Yeah. Well, except for the clouds.
True.
It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here to America's Morning Show. And we're claiming the sun as well. Coming up at 7:05, of course, we'll speak with Joe DeGeneva. At 7:35, Dr. Mark Siegel on an outbreak of TB and measles linked to the
More good
border
news.
crisis. Yeah. And then at 8:35, Dr. Tom Jones, astronaut, will talk about the solar eclipse and how this does get people excited about space
Yes.
and the planets and heavenly bodies,
Very cool.
like Sydney Sweeney.
Okay.
What? No?
Let's keep going.
Different? Okay. So we will talk to Tom Jones about that. And we'll play lots of Tom Jones songs, and then he will roll his eyes and never talk to us again. You know what? I didn't play this earlier, but I do. Your senator of Virginia, we're going to get on to something else as well, but I do want you to hear what your senator has to say about Israel. Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine is up for re-election this year. And, good old moderate Tim Kaine, centrist Tim Kaine,
Yeah.
pro-life Tim Kaine, pro-Israel Tim Kaine,
Yeah,
Catholic
where's he
Tim
been?
Kaine. Apparently, he's changed his stripes on literally everything. And here he is suggesting that Israel, if we have U.S. troops involved in humanitarian efforts, like putting together that dock, the pier that we're building for them to take, which, by the way, we only have to build for them because Egypt refuses to open their border
That's right.
to their
That's
brothers
right.
and sisters.
And nobody seems to mention. ever.
That he's concerned that U.S. troops could be targeted not by Hamas, but by the IDF.
It's a military operation. These are some troops that are deployed out of Virginia, Fort Eustis in Virginia, in charge of this Marine Pier operation. We knew when we announced it they might be in harm's way from Hamas, but after the events of this week, anybody doing humanitarian aid is going to wonder if they're in harm's way from the IDF.
What a slime.
What a slime ball. And let me tell you, and he was in Alexandria, Virginia last week, and he got harassed by pro-Palestinian, or let me correct myself.
Pro-Hamas.
Pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protesters. He got shouted down. And I actually responded on Twitter. I was like, enjoy your new friends, Tim Kaine, because this is who the Democrats are. They are, including some elected officials, are defending Hamas. Yeah. So we see this comment come out of Tim Kaine the week after he was harassed by these people, because he knows he's got to
pander to the terrorists.
He's got to pander to the terrorists,
and he's got to equate, even worse, to equate the IDF and Israel government
as the real threat,
as or an equal threat to Hamas, is just morally ignorant and despicable. And slime bag, I think, is what we were saying. That's Tim Kaine. That's where Tim Kaine is now on this. And so outrageous. All right. Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Speaking of outrageous.
Pete Buttigieg was on Jen Psaki's morning show on MSNBC because Jen Psaki is a journalist, and was asked about the crime problem in D.C. And Pete Buttigieg doesn't quite understand what your problem is with the carjackings and stuff.
So we need to talk about the reality here. And again, there is a lot of funding and a lot of energy going into telling a different story, especially on ideological news outlets and online. But the simple facts and the simple reality are right here staring us in the face, including the fact that I can safely walk my dog to the Capitol today in a way that you couldn't do when we all got here.
Yeah. By the way, he has a constant security detail.
Yeah.
He is a cabinet official.
Yeah.
He has people following him, probably large people, probably with guns.
Yeah.
Following him to make sure that he's safe.
So he can walk his dog. Like he can walk his dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Deadliest year last year, DC had its deadliest year in 20 years.
I can walk the dog to the Capitol in a way that I couldn't when we got here. First of all, yeah, he's claiming that 3 years ago it was more dangerous and it's gotten better. By the way, the Biden administration has literally done nothing to make things safer in D.C. It's not their job, by the way.
True.
It's really the D.C. government's job in connection with Congress. So suggesting that even if anything is safer, which it's not, but that it's somehow the Biden administration, it's because Trump made it too dangerous.
Pressure
in
applied.
DC.
They could put pressure. I mean, it is the capital city, and they have officials living in the city. I mean, I feel the same way about the Senate and the House. They have young staffers having to walk to Union Station, which is now basically a toilet, for homeless people, and so they can apply pressure. Democrats in this city don't put any pressure on the mayor to do anything.
But and what's most despicable about this here, you've got this. God, he's so smug.
Oh, I know.
And so arrogant and such a know-it-all. And it's like anyone who disagrees with me is just propaganda. We just need to tell the truth. When we talk about the crime problem in D.C., it's not about freaking Pete Buttigieg, a cabinet secretary, walking his dog to the Capitol. Here's what they never mention. Try walking your dog down on the Anacostia River. Try walking your dog in Southeast D.C. Try walking your dog in the wards that have constant crime problems.
Right.
This isn't about you being protected while you walk your dog. This is about children who are getting shot in the streets. But they're children of color, Pete, and you and your party don't really care about them. I always love when news agencies, and sometimes WMAL is guilty of this too. It's like there are shootings and there are murders daily in D.C., and we only report on it when it happens in Chevy Chase. We only report on it when it happens in Tenleytown or Northwest D.C. because, after all, what do you expect from those Southeast neighborhoods? That's just how they are. This is absolute embedded racism from Pete Buttigieg and the Democrats who are just fine. As long as I can walk my dog,
with my security
who is probably
detail.
just as white as Pete Buttigieg is,
Puffy.
it's fine. But try walking your dog down in the neighborhoods where you wouldn't dare go, Pete. And that's what we're talking about when we have crime problems in this city.
The so-called party that cares about vulnerable populations does not care about those who see crime daily. And also, Pete, why don't you connect the dots between the young people carjacking, 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, with the chronic absenteeism in D.C. schools, okay? There are problems in D.C. that these are not easy to fix. These are complex issues that are going to take a lot of years. But this dismissal, I can walk my dog just fine with my armed guard behind me.
Yeah.
It's just sickening.
Yeah. And Jen's just fine in Northern Virginia, too, behind her walls while she mocks Virginians
that's right.
for worrying about the border problems. We've got a little bit more denial, not just from Pete Buttigieg about the economy, but also from the Labor Secretary, Julie Su, acting Labor Secretary, because she will never get approved by the Senate. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, Buttigieg was also commenting on how great the economy is. And once again, he just said, well, there's this well-funded propaganda unit out there who would make you think that D.C. is dangerous, right?
Yeah.
This is the vast right-wing conspiracy. Anytime he's on MSNBC, who won't even allow Ronna freaking McDaniel,
right,
who is like, a champion of MAGA world, right? Won't let her voice be heard. So he is literally sitting on a propaganda outfit claiming that anything negative, anything that suggests that things aren't perfect in this country is really just right-wing conspiracy. Yeah. And here he is talking about the economy.
I think it's important to recognize where people are at, too. The country's been through a lot. Families have been through a lot. And just because a number on a page looks good doesn't mean people can feel it. Anybody who's been in a relationship knows that if somebody's not feeling great, the first thing you say to them is not, you should be feeling better than you are, right? Stop not feeling it. So, look, we've been through a lot as a country. Having said that,
so let me just pause there.
I said that,
He's trying to give lip service saying, listen, I know everything's great, and I know everybody feels lousy. So, we shouldn't just – and now he's going to do exactly what he said he shouldn't do, right? And he thinks that he's somehow prefaced it properly because he's such a great comms guy.
We're also achieving a lot as a country. And while there is a very well-funded noise machine trying to poke holes in those achievements, trying to talk down the economy and all the things America has done, I think it reflects well on the president that the American people under his leadership and the American economy under his leadership have added so many jobs, including, importantly, in areas like manufacturing.
Actually, the jobs that have been added to this economy are government jobs. Government jobs or healthcare jobs, which are paid for by the government.
Right.
That's it.
This is government growth.
That's all this is.
And there's a lot of also part-time jobs where people are not making it, so they have to then go drive Uber at night.
Which they're also trying to undermine by defeating any kind of side gig opportunities and independent contractors. Here's the bottom line: what Pete Buttigieg is saying. You may think that everything costs more, which it does. You may think you don't have money at the end of the month, which you don't. You may think that the economy is in the doldrums and inflation is up, but we've achieved a lot because we're spending money. There's billions of dollars allocated for electric vehicle chargers, and so far we've made 9 of them. So what's your problem?
Yeah.
653.
Making sense of your world.
Appreciate what you do.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I completely agree with what you're saying.